Hello everybody and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel, and it's the build up and the team news should be out in about 9 or 10 minutes for the game against Leeds. As I've been doing before the recent games, we're going to have a look at a couple of the predicted lineups just before the team news comes out. Then we'll be chatting about the actual team and answering questions. Anybody who wants to put any questions on the lineup or anything on the channel, and we'll read out the questions and give some answers. Just very quickly, look, when I look up the team news, obviously I just Googled it, and what came up today, the first thing that cropped up, dead interesting I thought, was the Daily Mirror were giving the team that actually played against Leeds the last time we played against them 16 years ago. And even though there are 3 or 4 of our old greats in that team, it wasn't such an exciting lineup 16 years ago, not for me anyway, but the last time we played them. The lineup last time we played Leeds at Old Trafford in the league was Tim Howard in goal. There was a back four. I'm working out where each one played. It doesn't really give it in order, but it looked like a back four of Gary Neville at right back and Quinton Fortune at left back, along with John O'Shea and Mikael Silvestre as 2 centre-backs. And then further forward, it looks as though, well, obviously Ruud van Nistelrooy was playing at number 9, and then either Kleberson or Paul Scholes would have been at 10. So if we say Scholes he played at 10, it would give a midfield 4 of, believe it or not, Phil Neville wide on the right, Kleberson, Nicky Butt and Ryan Giggs. And as I say, with Scholes perhaps a bit further forward and Ruud van Nistelrooy at number 9. Interestingly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was on the bench for us that day the last time we played Leeds, along with, believe it or not, Cristiano Ronaldo. He was an unused substitute in that game. If anyone can show me a man who could say that he predicted the career that Cristiano Ronaldo was going to have, I think I could pretty safely say I could show you a liar who could have said in those days, what he was going to go and do with his career. Absolutely unbelievable. So that was interesting. The last time we played Leeds, not a fantastic lineup in itself, but 3 or 4 great players in it. Possible lineups for this week. Manchester Evening News have gone with De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Telles. I think Luke Shaw will come back in. I really do. But the Evening News have gone Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Telles. They've gone with Rashford to the right and Dan James to the left, believe it or not. I find that interesting. It's the only outlet that I can see that's predicting actually, it's not really a prediction. It's saying possible lineup. It might be one and the same thing. It's up to you to decide that. But they've said possible lineup. Rashford on the right, James on the left. I'd love to see Dan James get a game, but I really can't see it. There's too many players getting games in front of him who don't get enough games, if you follow me meaning. So I really can't see Dan James getting a game, as much as I wouldn't mind it whatsoever. Interestingly, Leeds have been linked with him a few times. I don't know whether that's in the Evening News' thinking that they might use him against a team that fancy him. They probably, obviously, Leeds think he's a good player. Would it be a benefit for us to have a player playing against them that they might be fearful of even? I don't know. But they've gone with Rashford on the right, James on the left. They've gone with Pogba and Fred in the middle, and Bruno at number 10 and Anthony Martial at number 9. That's the Manchester Evening News. The Evening Standard have found they've gone with De Gea, Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, Lindelof and Shaw. So the Evening Standard have gone with Luke Shaw, as I do think it'll be Luke Shaw, to be honest. I can't see Telles keeping his place. I think Shaw was just rested the other night. They've gone with a midfield 3 of Fred, McTominay and Pogba. And look, as I always say, you can only play 11, and there are other lineups here that I do prefer, but I don't mind that as a midfield 3. I really don't. Pogba, there's a little bit of room there for Pogba to go forward a bit, because obviously you've got the support of Fred and McTominay behind. But they've gone with Fred, McTominay and Pogba. They've gone with Bruno at number 10, with Rashford and Martial up top. That's the Evening Standard. The Independent, they've gone with David De Gea in goal. All the back fours are the same, apart from the Evening News, who somehow have got Telles in. I don't know if they know something other people don't know. But the Independent, again, have gone with Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw. They've gone with a midfield 3 of McTominay, Fred and Van der Beek. I'd like to see Van der Beek get a game as well, but I keep saying it, you can only play 11. I don't know how you can fit all the... Obviously, these have had an attempt at fitting these players in. They've gone with McTominay, Fred and Van der Beek. Again, as I just said about the previous midfield, McTominay, Fred and Pogba. I wouldn't mind McTominay, Fred and Van der Beek either. I really wouldn't. It'd be fine. Bruno at number 10. Again, everybody's gone with Bruno. And Rashford and Marshall, everybody seems to have gone. Well, everybody's gone with Rashford, Marshall and Bruno. They're in all the teams. I found one from TalkSport. The first time I've come up with one from TalkSport. TalkSport have gone with David De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Lindelof, Maguire and Shaw, as have most of the others. They've gone with McTominay and Pogba as a central pairing, and Bruno at number 10. And then they've gone with Greenwood, Marshall and Rashford. I think that apart from... There are actually 3 changes in that team from the team that played at Sheffield United, but they're all direct changes, if you like, direct swaps. You've got David De Gea in for Henderson, you've got Shaw in for Telles, and you've got McTominay in for Matic. But the rest of them, I think they all played, didn't they? Yeah, against Sheffield, Pogba played, Greenwood, Marshall and Rashford played, and Bruno played. That's TalkSport's attempt. It might not be a bad... It might, you know, he might not want a... He might want to make 2 or 3 changes maximum. We keep talking about consistency of team selection could lead to consistency on the field. And really, if you really want to get consistency, even 3 changes is too many. So he might not want to make, you know, too many changes. So it wouldn't surprise. That might be a close thing, that, because it's a team with 3 changes in it, but there's no formation change, if you like. It's all the same players, or players that are taking the places of players doing the exact same role. Obviously, the keeper's one. Left back for left back's obviously the same job. And McTominay, obviously, very similar to Matic. You've been the deepest lying midfield player. So I think the TalkSport might be onto something there. Team news out? No team news yet, no. What time is it now? It is now 27 minutes past. We should have the team news any minute. Anybody put any suggestions on there yet or anything? I thought that was very interesting, that Daily Mirror team from 16 years ago. Tim Howard in goal, Gary Neville, John O'Shea, Mikel Silvestri, Quinton Fortune, Phil Neville, Claberson, Nicky Butt, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, Ruud van Nistelrooy.
Jack Berry saying, do you remember when we played Leeds in the pre-season last season? I think we won 4-0.
Yes, yeah, we played them in. I think that game was in Sydney, actually. It was in Sydney. Was that pre-season? So this, I think it was last summer, that.
Right.
Yeah, they played in Sydney, didn't they? And then they played in the Far East on the way back.
Yeah, pre-season to this season, kind of COVID.
Yeah, pre-season to last season. Yeah, pre-season to last season.
A few questions here.
Go on.
Boris, are you worried about the Leeds press? Do you see Leeds 2 or 3-0 in the first 25 minutes?
I'm worried about the game overall, Boris, to be honest. I really am. You know, I think Leeds have been playing well, haven't they? I know they've not, you know, they're not that far behind us. In fact, I think they are 6 points behind us. They'd be 3 points behind us if they managed to beat us. You know, it's quite tight, that Premier League. So, you know, it just shows you, for a team that have got promoted and, you know, we're a third of the way into the season, they're not a million miles behind us. And they've had some good wins. They beat Newcastle 5-2 last week, didn't they? They were pretty unlucky right at the start of the season, even to lose at Anfield. I think it was a late win, and Liverpool got against them. So, you know, well, I think we know it's not an easy game. It's obvious that it's not an easy game. But they're a proper decent team. They're a proper decent team, and it's not going to be easy. So, yeah, I am concerned about the press, but I'm concerned about the game in general. Team should be out any minute now.
Any minute, yeah. There's a few people pushing for... hoping for Van der Beek to be included in the team today.
Yeah, I'd like Van der Beek to be included, but I really prefer him to play in Bruno's role. I mean, obviously, Ollie might not think like that. Ollie might well play him as a proper midfield player.
It's no coincidence that the person on here with the screen name Bruno Fernandes is the best centre-attacking midfield player in the world has said that Van der Beek is a proper midfielder and can play next to Matic, Fred or McTominay.
Look, he can. He can play in those roles, but he's definitely better as a number 10.
I think he'd be much more suited to playing in a midfield like that if he had a proper right and left-sided midfield player playing in it, as opposed to, you know, 2 inside forwards, or
Yeah, yeah. Who did he name? Who did he name?
He mentioned Matic, McTominay, and Fred.
Yeah.
True midfield players that we've got. I think that he probably could play that if you were playing kind of the proper wide midfield players.
Yeah, 2 of those. At least one of those players would have to miss out to get a wider player in, wouldn't they? If not 2 of them.
As opposed to number 9s in wide positions, which is what we keep doing all the time.
Yeah. I don't like the who's put that Talk Sport have got Greenwood, Rashford, and Marshall in. To be fair, the Independent didn't have that. The Evening Standard didn't have that. Yeah, and the Manchester United, they've all left Greenwood out. So only Talk Sport have included Greenwood. I think Greenwood.
There were comments coming in here saying James plays. I think someone's got the news.
Oh, is the team out?
It's not come out on air yet.
Right. So I'm going to guess it's going to be David De Gea in goal. It's going to be Wan-Bissaka. It's going to be Maguire. I'm writing it down as we go, and you can fill me in for any changes. Maguire is going to be Lindelof. I'm going to leave a left back free at the minute. I'm going to put Marshall in. He'll be playing. I'm going to put Bruno in. And I'm going to put Rashford in. I'm leaving a few spaces.
Got it here.
Go on. Who's at left back?
Shaw at left back.
I thought it'd be Shaw.
Wan-Bissaka right back.
Yeah.
Lindelof and Maguire.
Yeah.
McTominay and Fred.
McTominay and Fred. Yeah, I thought that'd be the case. Yeah.
Fernandes.
Yeah.
James, Rashford, Marshall.
Wow. Wow. I'm absolutely stunned. So the Manchester Evening News were onto something. In fact, have they got the exact team? Not quite. They've got Telles in, which is Shaw, and they've got Pogba in, which is McTominay. But they have got Dan James in. The Manchester Evening News were the only outlet that I could find that put Dan James into the side. Have you got the substitutes there?
Substitutes: Henderson,
yeah.
Telles,
Henderson, Telles, Bailey,
Mata, Matic, Pogba,
yeah.
Van der Beek, Cavani.
Oh, there's loads in there. There's 9 now. Yeah,
Cavani,
Pogba, Cavani, yeah,
and Greenwood.
And Greenwood, right. I'm absolutely over the moon for Dan James to get a run out. I really am. Proper excited for him. I hope it goes well. Really hope it goes well.
Jack Berens, what's your thoughts, Ricky? 2 attacking again?
Ever so slightly. Not as bad as if Greenwood plays. Dan James does his work rate. I'm not saying Greenwood doesn't do his work properly. Greenwood works hard. All the players work hard. It's a prerequisite of being a Premier League footballer. They all work hard, but Dan James is a natural wide player who springs forward from his defensive position a little bit better than a forward who's tracking back. I prefer. Look, I think everybody who watches me regularly knows that I prefer proper wingers playing in those roles. Yeah. So I don't think it is quite as well. It isn't with Dan James on one of the flanks. It's not quite as attacking as it was the other night with Greenwood on one of the flanks.
I don't think this is how it will line up. I think Rashford will be in one of the wide positions.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy if Marshall played from the left and James from the right, with Rashford at 9 and Bruno behind.
Great shout. Great shout, because then you've got a proper shape. Marshall knows how to do it. James knows how to do it. Yeah, I would like that, but I don't think it will be that. Marshall will be 9, won't he? Marshall, to me, Marshall's our best left-sided player. Plus, he's our best 9, so it is a toss-up. But I think because of his hold-up play, I think he's bound to be at 9, and I think Rashford will be right and James left. I really hope James has a good game. Anybody else asking anything?
A few questions coming in. Keane Quinn not happy, that team is rubbish.
Who says that?
Keane.
Yeah. What's wrong with it, Keane? Send us another question in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong with it. El Steele, that was a brave call from Ollie to drop Pogba. I'm in complete support of it. Yeah.
I thought Pogba did okay the other night, but when I watched it, somebody asked me on Twitter today, somebody asked me the direct question: do you think Pogba gave the ball away too cheaply too often the other night? And I think I just put a one-word answer. I certainly didn't give a very short answer. I think I just put yes. I have watched the game back and I've studied it carefully, and he lost the ball more times than you can really afford on a regular. You couldn't afford against a good team to lose the ball as often as Paul did the other night in his own half. He lost it. He got dispossessed 5 or 6 times. He played a couple of sloppy passes. Look, people people will jump on me and say, what about this player losing the ball, or what about that player losing the ball? No player goes through a game without losing a ball or without giving one slack pass. You need to do it as least often as you possibly can, but you especially need to do it less often when there's no need for it to happen. Sometimes, you see, when you read the stats, and it might say such a body's got an 85% pass completion and somebody else has got an 80% pass completion, the person who's got an 85% pass completion compared to the 80%, his passes, not only might they be the easier passes, as people often point out, but the person who's only got an 80% pass completion, sometimes the player who he passes the ball to, it goes under his foot. I saw that happen a couple of times the other night. Also, you can be picking out passes while you're under pressure, and when you're under pressure with a couple of men on you and you've got to try and find a pass and release it quickly, that's a time when it's acceptable, if you like, if that's the right word, to maybe give up possession. You know, you're under pressure, you've tried to find somebody quickly, but then what I can't abide by is players who have got lots of time on the ball and then giving away a stupid ball. And that's the ones that I spotted the other night 2 or 3 times. Time on the ball, and then either A, holding it too long and getting dispossessed, or B, playing a sloppy pass. And I did think that happened a few times too often the other night. I don't think he's dropped him for that reason. No, I think is that the right phrase? Maybe you shouldn't use the phrase drop people these days, because they do chop and change the team that much. They're just freshening the team up, aren't they? So there might not be any reason other than, you know, the reason is my favourite phrase. I'll come back to it again. The reason he might not be playing today is simply that you can only play 11. You know what I mean? He's got to give people a game.
Thorman 638 has said, I thought, like me, that you prefer the technical and intelligent players. Dan James runs in straight lines with his head down. I feel his defensive position is nothing special either, Thorman says.
No, don't agree. Don't agree. Dan James doesn't run in straight lines with his head down. Not at all. Well, first of all, when you talk about running in straight lines, I don't know if you mean running straight forward or running straight across the pitch or running diagonally. And are you talking about players dribbling the ball, running in mazy dribbles perhaps? What does running in straight lines mean? I've not got a problem with somebody who does run up and down the line and make himself available for passes. You know, straight lines is often fine, so I'd like to know exactly what you mean by that. I do hear people say it a lot. And I don't see that there's much.
You could argue it's a preference, because you don't really want players going on long, mazy runs,
no,
holding onto the ball too long.
No.
Really, when it's time to sprint, it should be in a straight line. If you're not running in a straight line,
yeah, if you're running a straight line, you get from A to B quicker. You do. You get from A to B quicker if you run in a straight line. So
when it calls for something mazy, you should probably be passing it.
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. If you're running in mazy lines, maybe you should be passing it more and then try to run in a straight line to get it back. If you're running from the halfway line and you want to run onto a ball that's passed to you, if you can do it in a straight line, you'll get there quicker, without any shadow of a doubt. As regards his defensive work, I think it's fine. Sorry, who's put this question in, or who said this?
It was Thorman.
Thorman, try and watch him closely today. I'll be recording the game. I'll make a note of your name, Thorman, and then I'll speak about Dan James when I do my what do you call it, player ratings. Obviously I'll be rating all the players, but I'll try and make look. It's worth doing this anyway. Dan James hasn't started a league game since the first game of the season. I don't think.
No.
I think he started against Crystal Palace on the first day. We were 1-0 down at half time, and as much as we might have thought it was going badly, we swapped him round, took him off at half time, and we got beat 3-1. So it certainly didn't. Oh, he started. Sorry, he started against Newcastle and he started against Chelsea. Correct. So he came back into the team for those games, which were decent. One good game and one decent game. So he's played against Palace, Newcastle, Chelsea. So I think this is his 4th start. If this ends up in a good win, our record with Dan James in the team will be quite good.
The Red Devil is saying, Rick, Mark Goldbridge is fuming that James is
Is it? Right. I'll send Mark a message as soon as we finished here. Is he fuming? Who would he have picked instead, is he saying?
No. James Checkley here saying, Rick, would you have picked Mata ahead of Rashford?
If Marshall's going to play at 9, I probably would do, yeah. I mean, Rashford scored a great goal during the week. We've got to give players a game at sometimes. You know, I think a lot of people know how much I think of Juan Mata. But, you know, we have got to give players a game. Dan James is getting a game. When we played Newcastle away, Mata started on one flank, James started on the other. We won 4-1. I know there were subs made later on that sort of got the goals, but we were doing that badly at the time. Don't underestimate the importance of being in the game, even though it was only Newcastle. At that stage, we'd got beat 6-1 by Spurs, we'd got beat 3-1 by Palace, we were double lucky to beat Brighton. No matter who we were playing, we needed to set ourselves up to be difficult to beat and still be in the game. So when the goals came later in the game, that was as much to do with the lads who started the game and keeping us in the game and keeping it tight. And not only did they keep it tight, we were unlucky not to be leading. Newcastle scored a really lucky deflected goal off Luke Shaw. It was an own goal. We got an equaliser through an header by Maguire. Bruno missed a penalty. We had numerous other chances. We could so easily have been 2 or 3-1 up by the time those subs were. Okay, we weren't, I get that. But we were doing okay and playing well enough, and we were, like I say, we'd not only got a foothold in the game, really we should have been up. When you think about fate in football, like Bruno, I know he's missed a couple of pens, but his penalty record is fantastic. But we made subs, so Dan James and Juan Mata got substituted in that game. Well, Juan Mata didn't get substituted till it was 3-1, so that was fine. The game was over when Juan Mata went off. Dan James went off while it was still 1-1. So it was obviously a move to try to win the game. If Bruno would have scored his penalty, we might have been at least 2-1 up, because goals change games. We might have been 3-1 up if Bruno would have just scored that pen, and he nearly always scores his pens. So if Bruno would have scored that pen, maybe Dan James wouldn't have got substituted. Maybe he wouldn't have lost his place in the team. It's just a funny old thing that, you know, goals change games, and it sometimes goes against you.
Sophie in the house. Hey Rick, how are you feeling about today? Seeing people going mad about the lineup, but I'm intrigued.
I can't wait for it, Sophie. I'm absolutely excited. I think we've gone back to McFred as Beth started calling him. That was the first time I heard that comment from Beth. McFred. I've not got a problem with that. I'd like Matic to have played, so at least we've got the 2 proper midfield players. I'm glad Shaw's back in, so it's a solid back 4. Got Marshall at number 9. You can't ask for more than that. And I think Rashford and James, if Rashford's wide, which I think it will be like this, I mean, you know, it is possible that Rashford's at 9, Marshall left and James right, but I don't see that. If Marshall's at 9, he can link up well with James. Some of the goals we scored, I mean, I've got to go back to last season because this season James has hardly played. In fact, when he did play against both Newcastle and Chelsea, Marshall was suspended. So he's not had a chance to play with Marshall, really. He did for half a game against Palace. If you go back to last season, funnily enough, we've just played Sheffield United. The link-up play between Marshall and James for a couple of the goals was absolutely brilliant. And his link-up play for a goal at City when we beat City 2-1 away. I believe Marshall's that good that players play better when they're playing with good players, and Marshall's that good he can bring good things from people. I think Dan James could have a good game today, and he's got Marshall to play with, and obviously Rashford on the other flank can be dangerous with his pace. So I honestly think it's a decent lineup. I really do.
Why do you think so many? This is Talha Hussein. Why do you think so many fans and Ole prefer Rashford over James?
He does get certainly this season. Rashford's getting the goals, isn't he? The amount of goals. I like Dan James. I'm a big fan of Dan James, but anybody who's watched me regularly will know that I believe it's a team game, and I'm not bothered who scores. And the amount of goals that Rashford's got now, I think Dan James might be capable. I think he's got about 12 goals already, Rashford, hasn't he, this season? I think that might be the limit that Dan James might ever score in a season. You know, ever, as long as he plays the game. Yeah. So, but I'm not concerned about that. I do think the team could play better, but it's because of the amount of goals Rashford scores that people,
Yeah,
you know.
it's too easy to focus on for people and to see how many goals scored. How many has he got so far?
I'd say it's about a dozen. I'd say, but all competitions.
Dozen in all competitions.
I'm sure he was up to 10, wasn't he, before we played Sheffield United? He got 2 the other day.
I think that's always a good way to assess it. Is that you know, people talk about that James doesn't have the same goal contributions that Rashford does. If you were to have just played all of those games again where Rashford has had goal contributions, let's say it's 12 goals that he's got in all competitions. If you just took Rashford out of all those games and put James in, we wouldn't have just scored 12 less goals throughout the game.
No, exactly.
The team would have still created, maybe you might have scored more, you might have scored around the same, you might have scored a few less.
Yeah.
But before Rashford ever kicked a ball for Manchester United, we used to score roughly 80 goals.
And we still...
When he stopped playing for us, we'll continue to score about 80 goals a season.
People get carried away. Unless you've got a goal scorer supreme, like Ruud van Nistelrooy, I think Rashford's is clearly. I'd be shocked if he didn't score more than 20 this season, which is a good return, especially for a wide player. I'm sure he will, but I don't care who scores them. I do believe another player in his place playing well who might score 10, but the team could still score just as many. It's only if you've got a player for me who's going to get 30 odd, where it's worth saying he gets that many goals, we've got to play him.
The Red Devils, I think, makes a great comment here. But the fact that a top manager like Bielsa wants James says a lot for me.
Yes, Bielsa's obviously doing a great job at Leeds, isn't he? I think Dan James, I rate Dan James, and I think Bielsa obviously rates him. And I think if he went on loan to Leeds in January, I'd wish him all the best. I do. I mean, we spoke earlier, the Manchester Evening News had Dan James in their team. Where they got that from, it stunned me. It's only when I saw it in the Evening News that I thought to myself, wow, Dan James might play today, and sure enough, he is playing. I can't imagine it's got anything to do that we're playing against Leeds, can you? But it is a bit of a coincidence. It does seem strange, yeah, I don't get why.
What's the purpose of
Look
what we've got.
Look what we've got.
Are they trying to get value up? I don't know what they're trying to do. It's strange.
Yeah.
But it's not just Bielsa, is it? Ancelotti, obviously, got a lot of respect for Ancelotti as a manager. Been there, doing everything.
Is he interested in him as well?
Well, Everton were linked with him as well, weren't they? So,
right, okay. I hope he has a blinder today. Gets a couple of assists to do me.
A lot of questions about Dan James. Ben Huntley here. How vital do you think Dan James will be in terms of pace on the counter and team shape defensively?
Well, Ben, team shape defensively, he'll be absolutely vital without a shadow of a doubt. On the break with his pace, it depends if you get the right passes. It depends how we play. It depends how much we have to defend to be able to play on the break. So that's always, it could be important. It could work out to be important. But the team shape defensively, without a shadow of a doubt, he'll be important.
Manchester Red, Ricky, what would you change about this lineup?
I would like to have seen. I think a lot of people know that I like Matic's passing. Some of Matic's passing the other night, I should have put 2 or 3. I meant to put a few clips up on Twitter and didn't. Some of his passing in between the lines into the striker's feet was fantastic. Fred's passing has improved recently, but the way Matic passes, he gets it so accurate. There was one pass to Bruno's feet from the edge of his own box, and Bruno was on the halfway line. It was like an arrow right between 2 defenders and straight to his feet. And we went on I'll tell you which move it was. Anybody who might have the game recorded so you could find it easily. It was the move where we ended up with Bruno breaking on their defence, and he had Marshall to his left and he had Greenwood to his right, and he passed it to Marshall when he should have. Greenwood was in more space, and the commentators said, oh, it's a poor decision. I mean, he tried to pass it to Marshall, it got intercepted. Greenwood was in more space, and it would have been a great chance if he would have passed it to Greenwood. So if you've got that game recorded, you can have a look at it, and you find the move where Bruno should have passed it to Greenwood. The pass that starts that move off is absolutely wonderful by Matic. It really is, and it wasn't the only great pass that he played. So I would like to see Matic playing more often. So I'll settle with that one. Matic for Fred for me. That'd be one change.
Bruno is I'm going to stop referring to this person as his actual screen name and just call him the fibber. Bruno Fernandes, the best centre attacking midfielder in the world, says, or the fibber as we'll call him now, Leeds only play with 1 defensive-minded midfielder, so why do we need to play with 2?
I don't know the Leeds team, but it's a bit of a difficult question for me to answer, because if I was to say to you, that I don't know the Leeds play. They've got what's the lad called who's played a couple of games for England? Can anybody answer that in the comment? Phillips. Look, when you say defensive, I like proper midfield players. That Phillips looks like a proper midfield player. Just a midfield player who doesn't often get caught out of position when the team are breaking or when they start to have a little bit of pressure on you. I prefer midfield players. You don't have to stay backs. This defensive-minded midfield player. I know I've coined that phrase myself because McTominay, Matic and Fred are all more defensive-minded than Pogba and Bruno. But maybe that's the wrong way round. Maybe I should look at it that Pogba and Bruno are more flamboyant players who are looking to create stuff. I mean, Bruno, really, we've stopped using him as a midfield player. He more or less plays as a... he's that far forward all the time. He's barely a midfield player now. Yeah. Barely a midfield player. He's like a number 9.
Like Firmino, isn't he? Plays that false 9 role.
And the number, if you watch for it today, I bet you'll see it at least 3 times in the game today, where Bruno is the man who's charging down their keeper, trying to make him kick it. So if you're playing in midfield, you can't afford to have one of your midfield players that far up the field that is trying to force their keeper to kick it long. He's the one who's putting pressure on him. It actually worked for us at West Ham. West Ham away, he chased the keeper down right on the edge of his 6-yard box, and the keeper skewed his kick, and it went out for a throw-in right near the edge of the box. And from that throw-in, we got it maybe 1 pass, 2 passes, and Greenwood scored. And that developed because Bruno forced the keeper into a missed kick. But generally, you cannot afford to have one of your midfield players doing that job. If they do pass it past you, you're short in midfield.
Harvey, Ricky, do you think the modern day 4-4-2 is quite defensive, like what we are going today to get 8 men behind the ball?
Today? I don't think we are today, really. I don't think... I mean, Rashford could be told to do that. I don't think this might... I think some people might call this 4-3-2-1 if you count Dan James as a midfield player. Bruno as a number 9, a 10, and Marshall as a number 9. Rashford's going to play as a forward, isn't he?
Well, he said recently in his press conference, that we haven't changed shape too much. He almost denied that we played a diamond. It was He was like, we're just 4-2-3-1 all the time.
Yes, he did.
But the personnel dictate the shape as much as how you put it down on the tactics board for me. And just because we've got James playing in one of the wide positions today as opposed to Greenwood or Rashford, means that position will be performed with a more defensive mindset, because either Greenwood or Rashford playing in that wide position, they're both number 9s, aren't they?
Yeah, they're both strikers.
Centre forwards. They play with a centre forwards attitude, and Dan James plays it with a midfielder's attitude.
Correct.
It's a different approach to the position.
Correct. Same position, different approach.
Yeah, and that same thing goes for like a lot of people asking about Van der Beek being in the midfield. He isn't a midfield player, so to speak, is he?
He's not like Fred, he's not like McTominay, and he's not like Matic. Yeah. So you could play him there. You could also play Bruno there, and we have played Pogba there. I would put Van der Beek, Bruno and Pogba all down as attacking midfield players, and I'm not going to use the word defensive. They're just a little bit more sensible. McTominay, Fred and Matic are all, like I started to use, they're all proper midfield players. Pogba, Van der Beek and Bruno are all attacking midfield players.
The Matic, McTominay and Fred trio are all midfield players in the true sense of a midfield player, where you know amongst yourselves, we can't afford to get caught ahead of the ball.
Correct.
We turn possession over, we can't be ahead of the play. We have to be goal side all the time.
For you to go ahead of the ball, it really has got to be a worthwhile moment. It's not got to happen willy-nilly time and time again. Paul Scholes was a midfield player, scored absolutely oodles of goals, and he knew the right moment to go into the box. He knew the right moment to have a shot even. He wouldn't be shooting from stupid positions unless... and he could really shoot from stupid positions. They weren't that stupid when he shot. But... you got to know your moment. Now, in other words, if possession, like you just said, if possession gets turned over, you need to either behind the ball proper rapid, or preferably already behind the ball. And that's the way a midfield player should play. You need to... I remember Keane scoring twice at Arsenal. You You couldn't ask for a player, if you wanted to name that phrase, coin that phrase, defensive midfield player, you couldn't ask for a more defensive midfield player than Roy Keane. But he saw his moment twice in the space of 10 minutes. It's worth going for it. This is a chance. So you've really got to think, as a midfield player, now was my moment. Yeah. Now is my moment. And Bruno and Pogba and probably Van der Beek, not seen enough of him yet, as midfield players, they think their moment is there far too often. That's the way I see it.
You can already see with Van der Beek how often he seems to be looking to receive the ball with his back to the opposition goal.
Yeah.
That was the play is always in front of Scholes and Keane.
Correct.
They see the opportunity and seize the opportunity to get onto a ball that's played forward.
And they're already facing the goal.
Facing that way. But you never saw Scholes or Keane receiving the ball
very rare
to the opposition goal. Whereas Bruno constantly takes up a position like that.
He's got his back to goal,
Van der Beek seems to be really comfortable in that type of position where he's trying to shape his body that way to receive it, be back to goal.
Receive it, lay it off and turn. Or receive it, turn and pass it. You didn't used to see Scholes having to turn very often. His mindset, his radar was always, he was basically behind the ball nearly all the time. When you think about it, even when you score a goal, you're coming onto that ball, and even if you're 6 yards out, you're still behind the ball, aren't you? So players being behind the ball, you've got more chance of doing absolutely everything than, if you're behind the ball, scoring goals even. You do it better from behind the ball rather than being with your back to goal. If you're running onto stuff, it's an easier thing to do to actually finish, if you like. It's 3 minutes to 4. I think Mark's. There's somebody who's already said that Mark's speaking about Dan James playing. I'd love to see what Mark's got to say. We'll probably be on a show tomorrow night, and I hope Dan James has an absolute blinder. Another quick 1 or 2 questions before we go. It's nearly 4 o'clock. Kick off at past. We want to get a cup of tea and get sat down, see what the pundits are saying.
Rick, I think this will be a match in which Leeds might exploit Fred's poor first touch, and also think that Tomini should drive forward more as he can use his strength and also progress the ball.
Mark Tomini does use his strength quite well, and he's got a long stride length. He gets away from people quite easily. I think taller players do this. I think Matic gets labelled with this a lot. Taller players have got a longer stride length and they don't look as quick. Usain Bolt's 6'7", by the way, and 6'8". You know what I mean? So players with a longer stride length, they don't look particularly quick. I wouldn't mind betting if McTominay and Fred had a 100-metre race. I think McTominay would probably beat him. The longer stride length you've got, you don't look quick. But McTominay gets that ball and drives forward, and people can't live with him. So I do agree with you, Shabir, in the one manner that it's something that we could do with more of. But I do believe that there's a time and a place. So I'd have to really study him carefully to sort of say he's done it at the right moment each time. There's no point doing it if it's not really on, or if you're going to run into a crowd of players, you're better off passing a simple ball. But there were 2 questions there.
There's a statement from a bit further back that's from Manchester Red, which I think you did address briefly without going on too long. But sit back and counter against Leeds at home is disgraceful. So I think that's a misunderstanding with playing in a if it is a 4-4-2 or however it lines up. A lot of times 4-4-2 gets labelled as a defensive shape.
Sit back and counter. Who's asked that question? Manchester Red. I can't honestly. You're looking at it in the long look. We've got a centre forward, we've got a number 10, and we've got 2 wingers. How many forwards do you want to play with?
We touched on this last week, I think, when we spoke about the likes of Bayern Munich and Liverpool lineup and City's lineup, how in their wide positions, in their 4-2-3 and the 3 line, they've got midfield players playing on the right and left.
Yeah, a lot of people wouldn't regard him as mid. Man is definitely a midfield player. Most people wouldn't agree with you with Salah, but I know where you're coming from. If the opposition have got the ball, which isn't as often with Liverpool, he's behind the ball. Yes. He's in the correct place. Yes. The shape of the team is better.
Well, a lot of the time, because these top teams spend so much time in the opposition third around the edge of their box, of course they're going to have a higher average position because they dominate possession.
For dominating possession, yeah.
So of course they look attacking, but when they do turn the ball over, they're very quick to get back like midfield players, and it's actually 4-5-1.
Yeah.
And that's the same with Bayern Munich. They're so good at maintaining possession in and around the opponent's box that it often
they're not
looks
often
like
defending.
4-3-3. But you could also explain that, you know, it's almost like no defenders because your defenders become like midfield players because you're playing that high up the pitch.
That high up the pitch, The average position in some of Bayern Munich's game, the two centre backs, the average position will be just, you know, just inside their own half, won't it?
So to go back to the 4-4-2 being defensive minded, you could argue that it's more offensive minded than most of Europe's elite because you're actually playing with two forwards.
We're playing with two forwards, yeah.
Still trying to get your wingers up in support. You know, that's still the aim, but they've just got to get goal side when
you're defending, you've got to get goal side. There's no point. Sorry, I know it was a United. What's his name again? United Red.
Manchester Red.
Manchester Red. I would agree with you if I thought the team was set out here to defend and break on them. I would agree with you, but it isn't. You know, McTominay and Fred are there to try to keep the ball in Leeds' half. And then we've got two wingers. I think Rashford will be playing wide right, and I think James will almost certainly be playing wide left. We've got a number 9 to hit with the ball, Marshall. I think it's a particularly attacking lineup. I really do. One more, or should we get going? Last one.
Jack Berrin.
Jack, go on, Jack.
Really annoyed with the fact that we chop and change the team so much. It's not going to help with inconsistency. We will get consistent results with a consistent team. We saw this last season post-COVID.
Jack, 100% agree with you. I'd love to keep a consistent team. He has somehow or other got to give players the odd game. I'd love him to sort of just swap one player each week, me. And obviously, another thing I'd love to do is to get 2 or 3 goals up in games and give substitutes a run out. I mean, we were 2 goals up the other night against Sheffield United and he made his subs late. Some people might argue he was right the other night because obviously they got a goal back, but that's not because of the substitutions. It really isn't. So, you know, Jack, I agree with you. I would love to see a regular starting 11, maybe just one change here and there rather than 3. And I actually believe we've got a squad and a team good enough to win against virtually anybody in the Premier League. And we could be up there, but we've got to keep winning these games.
There is one thing about the inconsistent team selection at the moment. It's until he gets the team right. I'm quite happy that it's inconsistent. I'm just hoping he starts to be consistent once he's got it right.
Yeah. If Dan James gets 2, you know, I'm dreaming here, but if Dan James gets 2 assists and a goal today and we win 3-0, maybe he might keep his place on the. Well, it's Everton next in the Carabao Cup. You know, there might well be a few changes for that one, and Dan James might get another game on Wednesday. That'd be a dream for him, getting 2 games in a row. Right, should we go and watch the game? Should we go and see what the pundits have got to say? Definitely. I hope everybody enjoyed that little show. If you enjoyed it, tell all your friends. Let's get more people watching next time, get more questions in from different angles. So if you enjoyed it, tell all your friends. Please subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, keep stumped. Don't tell anyone. Don't forget, Mark's probably already started. If you want to watch a watch-along now, I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. Should be a cracking game, and I think Mark will be a lot of fun for you too.